clearly? Welcome, welcome, welcome. You can just send some messages in the chat or show some reaction, use reaction feature to let me know you're hearing me. All right, great. So welcome again to another exciting PSA meeting. And we are continuing in our series but today we're focusing on a day in the life of a psychologist. Very interesting stuff. And we have with us, and I just want to welcome our delightful past president, Mrs. Aldith Hazard. She will be moderating the panel discussion for us. And special welcome to our guests, our panelists here today, and you will hear a little bit more about them very soon. So over to you, Aldith.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Denise. Thank you so much. Hi. Is everybody hearing me okay? Oh, great. Great. Wonderful. It's really nice to be invited to come and moderate today. I'm seeing some familiar names and faces, and I'm really happy to be with you. So today we have a really nice panel discussion, for you today. We have, I know this is the second installment of your series, What to Do with Your Psychology Degree. And last week we had clinical psychologist Verol Pillay, who was a teacher of mine when I was at UWI. And we also had Miss Clement Henry from the Placement and Career Services Unit at UWI. And so I'm sure you got quite a bit of nuggets from them last week. But this week, we are on to another exciting segment of the series. And we have Dr. Olivia Rose with us, who is a sports psychologist. And we also have Mr. Chad Lambert. Chad is one of those persons you always hear his name when you're in undergrad, right? So we have Chad Lambert, who is also a clinical psychologist. Welcome, Dr. Rose. Welcome, Chad. It's really nice to have you with us today. And I know I'm not going to ask any hard questions, just a little bit about your journey to where you are. And I am sure that the club is just ready to engage. Guys, write down your questions. Anything specific that we don't cover in our discussion that you'd like to know, get further information on. So let me see, which of my panelists would like to go first? Who wants to sit in the hot chair?
Okay, in the interest of time, I think I'll go first.
Okay.
Just because I have a 3 o'clock and I think you may not be finished at 3.
No. All right, fine. All right. Let me give you a little background about Dr. Rose. Dr. Rose is a distinguished sports psychologist in Jamaica and the English-speaking Caribbean, and she serves as a consultant to numerous athletes and sports teams, including the West Indies cricket team and the UWI West Indies. She is an expert voice on sports psychology-related matters on various media houses in Jamaica. Dr. Rose completed her BSc in psychology and her MSc in applied psychology at UWI, and she currently holds a PhD in sociology, leisure. One second. I think my device is not cooperating with me, so let me try again. Right, so she currently holds a degree in a PhD in sociology and leisure and sport from the University of Leicester. Dr. Rose also teaches and is involved in learning at the tertiary level from 2006 to 2020. And she has served as a lecturer and administrator at various tertiary institutions in Jamaica, and currently is a senior administrator in the capacity of sports psychologist for the University of the West Indies in Mona. It is important to note that this trailblazer is the first to be appointed in this post at the Mona campus, but her work extends to all other campuses across the Caribbean through the Faculty of Sport. Dr. Rose has been the curriculum developer for various types of sports psychology courses at the bachelor's and the master's level, and she has worked with many athletes and coaches who compete in at least 13 different types of sports. Dr. Rose is also, she also has extensive knowledge and experience working to improve organizational cultures and serving as a change management consultant in well sought after because of the remarkable outcome she has had in the organizations. Dr. Rose has served in the capacity of Director for Human Resource, Policy and Strategic Development in the corporate industry, and is adept in helping organizations to improve their work environment through various psychological principles and techniques which she customizes to help them to address the unique needs that they have in their organization. Dr. Rose, you've written 5 books and you've published numerous articles and serve as an international peer reviewer for 2 scholarly sports journals. We are so honored to have you today. And I am sure that your experience with self-development and sports psychology and emotional intelligence and leadership will help us to, better guide our career in the field of psychology. And I'm sure somewhere along we're going to see that flair for fashion coming out, which I know is one of your passions, right? Along with your reading and your art. Dr. Rose, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our other master's degree in clinical psychology in 2018 at UWI as well. And he has been working in Jamaica, in Belize as well, and workshops on various mental health related topics. Additionally, he has worked as a researcher, tutor, and at UWI since 2018. Currently, Chad is dedicating his time in private practice, and he specializes in working with adolescents and adults. And he also does part-time counseling at a private school. In his spare time, Chad enjoys playing tennis, out with friends, watching TV, reading, and traveling. And he's also very passionate about volunteering, and he currently volunteers as a mental health support facilitator. So that's just a synopsis of the achievements of our panelists today. So Dr. Rose, in the interest of time, tell us a little bit about your journey in becoming a sports psychologist. One of the things I'd want to know, did you set out to become a sports psychologist?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's always an honor to be with the Psychology Association of UWI, simply because I remember when I was a student some way back years, and even one of the first student representatives on the Jamaica Psychological Society board when I was completing my master's in 2007. So yeah, hello, good afternoon. Is that Denise? Yes, and everyone. So I did set out to be a sports psychologist, and my panel member, Chad, yes, I did set out to be a psychologist, not a sports psychologist, okay? So in my yearbook, my high school yearbook, I went to Westwood High School. Anybody in here from Westwood? Okay, all right, seems like I'm the only one right now. You can just say something in the chat or so that I can acknowledge you as well. All right, seems like I'm the only one. All right, so I went to the school that wears the hat. Usually I'd have the hat in my office, but because of COVID and so on, I just have a little, I think that's a jersey from one of the athletes, a team that I work with. But I did set out to be a psychologist. My yearbook in high school in 2000, locks, 2001, actually as a child psychologist, okay? No, so no, so there is psychology involved. So at least I deserve a little clap for that one. How I ended up in sport now is that I knew I wanted to be a psychologist from grade 9 because I scored high in the helping professions and so on. But that was a book that my aunt had brought from the United States for me and career development and so on. And when I looked at the pay, it wasn't bad. It really wasn't bad. But remember now, it's from the States. So I said, okay, I see something that I want to do. And plus, based on my personality type, because my grade 9 teacher at the time had given us a test and I had scored high on the helping professions. So from very early, I knew that I wanted to be a psychologist. Now, the journey, my mother was not having that at all. So when I was finished high school, all I know is that I was on a bus from country to Kingston at Michael doing test to be teacher because that is the only stable job that you must get. And because my mom was a teacher at the time, still is a lecturer, I did not have much of a say where that was concerned. So I did the exam, passed it. I didn't want to do that. So I asked her if I could go to sixth form. Went to sixth form. I was still interested in being a child psychologist at the time. And then, so sixth form happened. I ended up at UWI pursuing psychology, but the lady would not have it. So I have a first degree in psychology and Spanish because I needed to have a teaching subject. And I loved Spanish so much in high school. In fact, my mom was a Spanish teacher, okay? And I didn't like it because I know I was forced to choose it over what my results had said to me in grade 9 and then in yearbook, because we were told from very early that you need to be very careful of what you put in the yearbook, because apparently it's like a magic wand, and whatever you put in the yearbook is that you're going to become. Because there was a girl that did put she going to rob the bank, and she robbed the bank and was in prison overseas and all colors. So we say, okay then, if this is the magic wand, let me make sure that I put something that I'm really serious about, and that if I become that, I don't feel embarrassed about myself and so on. So hence the child psychologist is there. And I didn't put any other options. So like some people say, okay, you know what, Olivia, I could go in the dictionary and go look for something and find a big career and put. So some people had put some careers that they weren't serious about, but I was serious about mine. And then I had to choose between being a psychologist doing Spanish and psychology. So most of the times I was, should not be saying this and this for me now. I was calling my Spanish classes. So if I had a Spanish class, I knew that I was going to go because I'm not that interested anymore because I'm now having to choose between psychology and Spanish. And back then that was, I know an influencer, Raul Davis. Yes, Raul and I shouldn't be talking in business. We're under some tree when it was Spanish class, but he was really brilliant in Spanish. Still is, and speaks multiple languages. So psychology now, I finished, not with the best. I got honors, but it wasn't no bossy honors. I think it was lower or something, but it was an honors degree. No, I've always been an honor roll student. So can you imagine how badly I felt with my little lower upper thing? And I said, that's not going to get me in clinical, So you know what? We're gonna wheel and come again, and we still want to become a psychologist because back then clinical people had there was this prestige to being a clinical psychologist and getting in the clinical program and that kind of thing. Not knowing that it don't matter what was, whether it was clinical or applied, it was very, very rigorous. So I was like, oh boy, here we go now. So the reason I got that in honors with lower division honors was because of the Spanish that I was studying. And so I was like, okay, I just get the basic for past that, but my psychology grades were, because that's what I wanted to do, but it's a cumulative GPA thing. So all right, move now. Interview for applied psychology now. And so I made the choice that I worked on that. It was gonna be harder. I don't know why I made that choice because that was just a myth when I think about it. So whether or not you want to be an applied psychologist or clinical psychologist, it still takes a lot of work and you need to get your grades and you need to have a nice bossy degree anyway, okay? Anyway, I found a mentor who now is Rosemary Vador. At the time, she was telling me about this work that people did with cement. Cement, there was this big issue with the cement industry and they needed people to go in and do motivation and so on. I said, whoa, that sounds like a psychology that I could do, an area in psychology that I could do. And fast forward to me applying, I wanted to be then an IO psychologist, which I still am, but I specialize mostly in sport, and that is how life can be very dynamic. You have to be willing to go along with the process, because sometimes the journey that you are trying to avoid is actually the destination anyway, So long and short of that story, I got into the applied program, only 10 people. I'm like, what is this? And when you check clinical, only 10 people. Then there was this scare factor, when we went to the grad lounge for orientation, they said only people don't graduate from this program, not the clinical one, the applied one. I said, dear God, what did I do to myself? Meaning they have people, they like, you won't graduate from this program within 2 years because it's so much work and it's so much rigor. And we have people from the other cohorts that don't graduate yet. And I'm like, hey, what is I really take on to myself, though, God? And then I was like, listen, so when they have, what you want to say as your charge or what's your goal, I said, my goal is to finish within the time required, which is 2 years. I was very deliberate about that. And I don't care who never graduate before me, after me, I was like, no, I am graduating within the 2 years because I need to get my career off the ground. Worse, remember now, my mother held bent to the first job I get in going to be a teaching job, and I held bent and proving her that first job I going to be in psychology, which it was, by the way, and that was through volunteerism. So when I was on campus in undergrad, I used to volunteer with Girl Guides. And we used to have the hangout center where we worked with girls whose parents were incarcerated overseas or who were living in foster homes. So I had counseling experience or practical experience then. So when I went to be interviewed at St. Andrew High School for Girls, which was my first real work, ready to show off on my mother that I was a guidance counselor, and that was because of my psychology background and not necessarily Spanish. They were impressed because I had experience volunteering. All right. So now in the master's program, it was, I don't want to scare you, but it was really a very tedious time of my life. It was very consuming, and the scare factors were real. And I felt like I was going to finish, but I was determined that I was going to be finished. And that's the power of intentions and really sticking to your goals. Then my practicum now, this is how I ended up in sport. My practicum, everybody nice and can go off campus. I did work out, so listen. My mother tell me, say, it's 1 degree she paying for. And yeah, she lent me money to pay for the next one. And I had to give her back. I remember I gave her back on a pink receipt. I write her back and she thanked me. And whenever she go anywhere, she talk about the importance of understanding lending from giving. And believe me, that was another lesson. And yes, because I knew that I was paying for it, there was no way on this planet that we will make it go beyond the 2 years. So everybody dressed up nice now and can go off campus to do their practicum. Parts of it, afterwards, after I left, I had served as a supervisor, a psych supervisor. And when they could go off campus, I knew that I could go off campus, right? So I worked out that since I can go off campus, I need to find something on campus to do. So let me see if I can find one of the halls to assess their programs, like using my IO skill and knowledge and thing. And then they say all the halls have evaluation programs already, that's not needed. Then a friend of mine bought me this book, some football thing. So sports psychology is a thing, right? It's a thing. And I was like, listen, I don't even know if I catch a ball. I tell me about this first. So anyway, he bought me the book. And funny enough, I read the book and I did up my proposal, and I really want to acknowledge him because years later he was killed and he had come back to borrow the book, and I don't have the book. But he was the person who had introduced me to sports psychology, and Dr. Lips at the time was the supervisor for us. And I brought over my documents. I did up my own MOU through Google and researching of what I would do and wouldn't do. And then Dr. Lips and the other persons vetted it, and then they said, okay, you can work in sports. So I was like, all right, yes, everybody gone off campus. I knew I wouldn't, again, have the kind of money to be commuting, taking taxi. Some people are placed in some nice places. I was placed back on campus, but I deliberately chose campus because of my situation at the time. Then when I started working with the athletes, I had to research everything because I was teaching myself while I was teaching them, even though they didn't know this. And when they were finished, they said they didn't know that I didn't know the stuff and I just knew the stuff for the first time. And that's the part of teaching. So I was always a tutor. I'm actually a trained teacher, as you can see. So I guess that's the part where my mother apparently win the bets or something. So I'll always be teaching. And I realized then that was a field in psychology that I could be interested in. And I knew because I was coming in at the back end, meaning I was never an athlete. I never played any sport at Manchester High School or Westwood High School. So I went to Manchester for sixth form. And so I knew that I had to learn the sport from the athletes. I had to be up with them at 6 o'clock. And I'm like, I wonder which one of my classmates up with nobody at 6 o'clock with them. Early morning, late evening, my whole complexion had changed because, you know, I'm not money for go buying a sunscreen and you're out with them under tent. It's not like now where, you know, there's so much, and back then there was no light. So like one time I used to pray that this athlete don't come to training, and the girl would come every morning, and I said, geez, I have to log my hours and so on, because now I'm observing them. Now I know, you know, what they mean when they say athlete bus, and you know, a whole heap of different things from different sports. So every sport, I came in with an attitude of learning, and that was how I was able to not just learn the sport, but they were able to trade off with me. So I said, listen, I know the psychology stuff, you know, it's just like how you know the sport stuff. So it felt more now like a really trusting vibe, and people, you know, Jamaican people are, because I remember when I was introduced to one athlete, they said, listen, you know, anybody come work on my head. And you know, I still get that even now, but it's less than when it was back then. So much so that they had used the principles that I taught them. One wrote up that they won 10,000 US at the time, because they were able to use the principles that were taught, because it was a competition to win that money from Scotiabank. And then they had used it in order to be relaxed when they go to the dentist and so on. And since I've been in sport since 2008, by default, I have not left. And over the years, I spend my little money that I'm earning to go to conferences. When I go, I'm the only Black person. Sometimes when I'm showing up at a conference, I don't even know where I'm going to stay, but somebody knows somebody that knows somebody that say, oh, you know, we have Oliver from Jamaica coming, da, da, da. And then I have still been volunteering because I was very much abused, and I call it abuse because everybody coming to you to say, you know what, you ever worked with hockey before? If you never worked with hockey before, come and get experience. And I said, really? At 10 years later, 14 years later, I'm still coming for experience. Why don't you ask the chef when you go and do another event, make the chef come for experience and see what kind of food you get, right? So the point is, people will try to find different ways to piggyback on you because they think, and I'm so happy that I'm forever 21, come on. Yes. So I'm not trying to look any way older, and I still have to convince people. Plus, I work in a field that is predominantly male, and then I did my PhD in Leicester in the UK, and that's another experience again. But the good thing is that other than trusting the process, you have to be intentional about your goals. And it wasn't easy. So my trajectory from undergrad to the master's was straightforward in terms of timing, because, by the way, part of the story that I had missed out is that I was the first person in the history of the program to graduate within the time and to get a distinction. People are frightened when people say me get distinction, you know, they go for color this up, they say, oh, you're Oliver, let's go over that life. And I said, geez, why am I have to get a special life? And then when I went over there, I realized that it's a distinction line. And part of that is because, one, is me was paying for it. Two, I not having enough was actually a good opportunity because I immersed myself into learning about the athletes at the time, into going to the training, understanding what it is that they do, working with coaches, being abused, of course, meaning they look at you, sum up your size, and if you think I look young now, boy, I look like a real midget back then, right? And they say, where's she going, and so on. So those were some of the things that you had to constantly be proving yourself. And since then, I still have to prove myself because of the gender thing. But now I'm not into that kind of proving. So like if somebody's recommended to see me or to work with me and they want me to convince them why they need to work with me, I'm like, you can go somewhere else because I know you're gonna have to come back to me anyway. And that's part of what I do is that I train people to be confident. And I prefer an athlete who has some amount of arrogance than none. And you have to own your stuff because people will tell you all different versions of yourself that you even wonder if that's you. And then you need to know when to let it go. So like, it's good in certain spaces to be confident and do that. But sometimes also at the end of the day, we're all human beings. You're not better than me, I'm not better than you. And that humility factor is also very important. But just holding on to your goals, believing in yourself, finding your team and your tribe and people who believe in you, because when you are so confident about something, there's no way that people can see that you don't know what you're doing. And then when you research, because I hope I've hammered the point of researching, right? I was there teaching myself a lot of things, learning, going to conferences, putting myself out there, even if I was gonna make a mistake, I'd still be willing to learn, and then you trade off with what you have. So that's the journey so far, and I've not left it. And this is the product.
Wow, what a story. Wow, that's interesting. And there are so many key lessons that we can learn from your story. But I want to just give Chad an opportunity to share what his journey was like. Chad, I know you have stories to tell. So just share what your journey was like. And we'll see how we can get the audience, back in the conversation.
Sure.
And ask some questions.
Hi, everyone. I don't think my journey is as interesting as Dr. Rose's, but there are a lot of parts of it that I can relate to. For sure, as it relates to wanting to do psychology, I also knew that I wanted to become a psychologist pretty early in high school too. Probably around the same time, maybe grade 9, grade 10, when we were choosing subjects and we're starting to look at different career paths. And I really wanted to match it with my interests and things that I like to do. And one of the things that I like to do from very early on was just kind of like helping people and listening to people and trying to figure out. I know I had a particular friend who well, at the time I didn't know was struggling with mental health issues, would always come to me with her problems. And for me, what made me curious was that, why was it? I was probably 4 years younger than her as well. And what was kind of intriguing to me was that, why was I able to, give her these answers or see things in such a clear way? But for her, it was so difficult or so complicated, or she just didn't have the answers. And so I was just like, why she think like this? So the kind of the brain and thinking was what really intrigued me. So, well, unlike Dr. Rosedo, my mother was very supportive with my journey with psychology, because she I think she did a minor in psychology and she did human resources. So she kind of was in the same similar field. Undergrad wasn't a walk in the park, because I remember, especially going into third year, I don't know if it's still like this now, they would have certain courses that you had to like apply for, like the research paper course and counseling, elements of counseling course and all. And I was the extra, and I was like, I want to do all the courses that you have to apply for, because that must mean that, your degree gonna look better.
You have a better degree.
Yeah, it's gonna make you look like, you are a better contender for the masters. And I knew right away that I wanted to do the masters as well. So, but not out here. I was thinking that I would do the masters abroad. So I was like, I really need my degree to look good and competitive. So I applied for all the courses and did them. But when I was doing them, I was just like, I wish I wasn't so damn extra. Like, I wish I could have just like kept it simple, because those courses were so difficult. And but got through them, and I was grateful for it, because it really did help with getting accepted into the masters at UA. Even though I remember when I was in undergrad saying to myself, I'll never come back to this school because it is so difficult and I just can't deal with it. And then I ended up back. So just like what Dr. Rose was saying, like, you have to be kind of open to different paths and different journeys. And if it doesn't work out the way you intended it to be, maybe it was for the best reason. Because the master's clinical program at UA, the master's program, boy, it's we were hearing the same things, I think, that Dr. Rose was hearing, which is like, people don't finish in 2 years. This program is very difficult. Are you sure you want to do this? Like, even they're trying to figure out how we feel about it. Is this something that we're passionate about? Because if you aren't, then it's going to be even more difficult. So that was something that kind of intimidated us in the beginning. Right. And then, sometimes you'll be met with challenges like lack of resources and just frustrations with the amount of coursework. And so it was very difficult. It was very, very difficult, but it was very, very rewarding, because the people that you meet. So for example, I'm still friends with some of my colleagues from grad school. You meet a lot of people, you make connections. The master's program was where I started to like network with psychologists at the time, and so you get an opportunity to do that. And then I think you fully get an appreciation for it after you leave the program and you go into the real world, because you feel like you're prepared to take on some of the things that you've learned. And so I'll always be grateful for my experience, particularly my graduate experience at UA. So it's tough, but I don't knock UA's master's program. It is very, 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 very good, and it makes us feel very competent when we are finished. So after graduating, I went to Belize for some time, and that was an interesting experience, because my supervisor was actually a social worker. So I was really like the only psychologist in the entire building. And so a lot of the times he would just be like, well, just do your thing. And I'm just like, I don't know what my thing is. I don't know. I'm so fresh out, and like I need some direction. So, but thankfully because I had networked with, or I developed a good relationship with some of my lecturers. I was able to email them and message them and help when I need help. And so they were always willing to be that kind of support for me. So I think as you go along and as you get more experience and time again, you have to prove yourself, like Dr. Rose said, when you're looking young and people doubt you, or people wonder if you're a professional. Oh gosh, I have so many stories for that, because I still look like, I could pass for a high school student. So I have many stories of persons saying they would come for therapy, for example, and let's say a parent would bring their child. The parent would basically come and ask me a bunch of questions. What's your experience like? Where did you go to school? What is and all these sort of like, I don't know if they Googled some questions and then came prepared to ask me, but sometimes you would have those parents that would drill me because it just didn't feel. And then sometimes that would make you feel a little bit insecure, but it was also something that I used as motivation to be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to show them and I'm going to leave them feeling impressed. That's definitely something that I think any young professional is going to encounter. You have to be able to use it as motivation, and instead of making you feel incompetent.
Yes. Wow. Thank you very much. I'm seeing a lot of similarities in your journey, and one of the things that I picked out is that you need to have the right attitude if you are going to be doing this, if you're going to be working in the field, because it's very hard to sell persons on the idea that you're needed as a psychologist, because a lot of people tend to think that they can do it, you know. And so for you to come and show them a different way, for one, you have the resistance where persons are in denial sometimes. So I can imagine it must have been challenging for you to forge that pathway into getting the acknowledgement for the work that you have put in your studies and so on. Dr. Rose, you mentioned that your mother told you she's paying for 1 degree, and I found that to be so interesting, because I realized that you were able to pivot from that. Some persons would have just flaked. But tell me, what was it? What happened in the moment you heard that from her, that she's only paying for one?
That wasn't like a one-off sentence or like, okay, said one time. That was like a thing that was hammered from you were in undergrad. As a matter of fact, what she said, she's paying one time for subjects. So if myself or my younger brother wanted to fail anything, you'd be responsible for paying for your receipt. So, from as a matter of fact, if you went back from like CXC, because we're from rural Jamaica, so I'm from St. Ann, even though I was born in Kingston, and she would tell you that there are enough trees outside. She don't want any trees and anything. Listen, that lady is a very interesting one, and the reason I am who I am today. So
you say your mom was using psychology on you all along, Dr. Rose?
As a matter of fact, she would tell you that she knew. No, listen to the story, people. No, she tell you that she knew that I was going to be a psychologist, because when she was pregnant with me, she read a lot of psychology books about developmental psychology. And believe me, really and truly, I think she really did know. I mean, the amount of psychology, I tell people all the day, my mom is a psychologist here. But remember, now is the teaching she wanted me to do, But how life evolves. So that didn't daunt me in any way, because it was said from a place not of selfishness. She was just saying that, listen, she only got 1 degree when she was younger, and that put her on her path. So it's that same thing when do with me. And not only that, I had a brother, so everything cannot be just for you. So I never interpreted that as wicked and cruel. I was just like, all right, then, that is it. I'm not going to spend no more money than I need.
Dr. Rose, then, so you're saying it was a motivation for you then? You use it as motivation to excel. Even though at first you were sculling out some of the things,
No, man, this sculling out of the things was not for the that was for the undergrad one, that was the Spanish one. And that's because, making me
you never wanted
to choose. I never wanted to do that, which is why you see choices are important for people. And when you make choices, but from very early, she was very big on how choices have consequences. So when I went to Westwood on the first week, I did not like Westwood. She said, no, dear, you chose this on the paper, because she wanted me to go to St. Hilda's, because she went to St. Hilda's and she was the deputy head girl. And I was like, I don't want to do that, because next thing you hear, Olivia Rose, your mother was this. From a long time, it looked like me did have some sense, So I was like, I don't want to go there, so I want to go somewhere else. So when I went to Westwood now, and the first week, I never liked that we have to wear white every evening. And I said, Mommy, I can go St. Hilda's now. She said, no. You chose Westwood, you passed the Westwood, and actions and choices have consequences. And people, the same thing I was trying to avoid, I ended up with, because I was the deputy head girl at Westwood and the student council president. So there are some things in life that no matter where you go, you can't really run away from. But I was not daunted with the fact that, because somebody else would hear the story and say, why am I the wicked? No.
Right.
That is what a lot of people need to know, that one, that was a motivational factor for me. And as I said, it motivated me so much so that I was making sure that I was finished within the 2 years. And then the bonus to that was that, unbeknownst to me, I was actually excelling. I mean, I was more concerned on finishing than even excelling. And it just happened that I got both, because I was now doing something also that I had owned and that I wanted to do. So I wasn't sculling anything, and I was very deliberate about that.
Dr. Rose, and one of the things that I'm hearing from you is that even though you knew you wanted to do psychology, it wasn't clear, and you thought you wanted to do child psychology, but it did not necessarily line up with that idea you had. And you mentioned too that you never wanted to go to St. Hilda's because you wanted to do something different and new. And in a sense, that attitude of wanting to do something new has landed you in the position that you are in, being the first in this field. But the thing though is, what I realize is that it's important that you know how to pivot regardless of what situation you see. That it's important for you to take the resources that you have available, the situation that you have available, and pivot to make it into something that works for you.
Definitely. So I would say that you can read the book, The Obstacle is the Way. There are several other books that tell you about how sometimes, I don't remember who wrote The Obstacle is the Way, but the obstacle is really the way. And sometimes, and there's another famous quote that says that lots of people find their destiny on the road they took to avoid it. Because really and truly, I was avoiding going on the road for my practicum, and look where it has landed me. But it's not about even pivoting, because sometimes people don't even realize that they can pivot, but it's more about trusting the process, going with the flow, and knowing that, especially if you, and I can only say what I use, if you believe in a source greater than yourself, because there may be atheists here and we respect all, but I believe in God, and I believe that my steps are divinely orchestrated, and I trust that each way will be made another way. Right? Thank you very much, Ricardo, by Ryan Holiday. And Ryan Holiday, I think, has also written If Caterpillar Can Fly, or something like one of those other books. But The Obstacle is the Way is a very good book. And it's really about trusting the process and trusting that each way will be made for you once you have the right attitude. Because I could have said, all of my colleagues gone off campus, or because I can't afford to go off campus and take the bus and commute, or think I'm less off. If I had interpreted that in a negative way, it would not have brought me the results that it did. Also, I could have said that, well, my mother said that I must pay for my thing, and it's not like I'm not doing well because so we get the honors still, things will say honors, even though we were schooling. Scratch that part, right? Why? If I had interpreted that negatively, then the drive and the way in which I'd approach it would have been very, very different. So your mindset and being optimistic and positive, the power of positive thinking is no joke. And obviously I have to teach this to athletes and people that I work with. And I practice it myself because I know that I am also the guinea pig plus the person that is instructing you. I have to show you how I actually use these things along the way. And I have been using them. But now, because psychology has become more advanced and people are now seeing the importance of what it is that we do, so I want everybody on this platform to know that it don't matter what area of psychology you choose to specialize in. Like in sport, they say cricket, lovely cricket, and football, they say football is life. Psychology is everything, okay? You use it in every different aspect of your life, in your interaction. It's like a staple ingredient for everything. It's just how you know, because when I was finished, there was no job that said
sports psychology.
Psychology. How could I forget this part of this story, which is the most critical part? For 1 year, I with a master's degree, I volunteered my services at a tertiary institution. The same tertiary institution that I have now, 7 years subsequent to that, was able to create the post. So if I die right now, thankfully, well, not thankfully, not now, but yeah, there will be a post already established. So somebody don't have to go through what I went through. And what I went through was not having an office space to work from. So when I bought groceries and I had my car, I had the consent form in a nice little box and my little file. I was a mobile office because there was no space. They'd never heard of that before. So even though they wanted what I had to offer, they did not know how that was going to be made possible. And I volunteered for a year, and then I was put on staff part-time with a master's degree. No. And I emphasize that because I didn't just start doing sports psychology alone. This is where now the story of my mother's version of the story becomes very, very important. I was appointed a lecturer in a permanent post at a community college. So, and then I was doing some lecturing at UWI as well and at UTech. So you see, the teaching part really came in anyway. The point I'm making is, like, when I'd finished teaching, I'd come to you in the evenings, come at training and so on, because again, it was part-time at the time until the post became established. So the way is not always going to be straight. And as you can see, I'm not a child psychologist, but I work with children who compete in sport as well. So I still get that opportunity. And I can tell those who are swimming to imagine that there's a shark behind them and that thing kind of works and they have to swim, right? So I get to use up some of what I did not anticipate. So I still get to work with children. But obviously I work mostly with adults and I am practicing psychology. And therefore, the way may not be a very one, two, three, chronological. It may not be clear cut. For some people, it will be. And in the meantime, while all of this is happening, life is also happening as well, right? Because you're not static, you're gonna age. Your colleagues will have families, will migrate, will do a whole lot of things, right? All right, they say, just think of the shark. So if it is a shark that is behind you, you're gonna need to swim, okay? Yes. And so many other things. So it's not a clear-cut path, but you have to be willing to trust the process, believe in yourself, surround yourself with people who believe in you, and use your resources to your advantage. You're not entitled to anything, no matter how much you think you have earned this space. You still have to go in as a student. When you go in as a student, you're able to learn, you're able to execute and put yourself in a position to be needed. When you're able to do that, then the world is yours for the taking. So find out, this is where research comes in. So you can't be doing this and you don't want research. Like every day I'm learning something new. You network. I think I heard Chad told you about networking and the importance of networking. So like I remembered, and it's like it's so very hilarious. I wanted to say funny, but more than that, I met a psychologist came to Jamaica from New Zealand some years ago and said that he Googled me and found that I'm the psychologist in Jamaica. And he was like, wherever he goes in the world, he normally Googles the sports psychologist of that area. So we exchanged contact and I was like, don't have to worry, I won't ever be in New Zealand, okay? But should I ever come there, I'll make sure I see you. Anyway, 2 years later, which happened to be like about 6 years later, as I'm not knowing how the future is gonna unfold, who end up in New Zealand, people.
Dr. Rose.
New Zealand, I was like, boy, look at this. Anyway, I looked for his number, found it, because it was so refreshing hearing from another sports psychologist, what are the challenges and so on and things. And while we didn't meet in New Zealand, because New Zealand is very big, so like I was in Christchurch when he was probably in Tauranga and so on, we were able to exchange contact information and he was able to assist me and my team with things while we were there, because obviously that's where he's from. So you see, life, you have to be willing to go with the processes and network with people, and you network also through volunteering, because when you have goodwill capital, what you give, you will receive eventually. It may not be the same time, but you will receive it.
Yes. Thank you for that encouragement, Dr. Rose. Chad, what is your day like in practicing? Because you mentioned that you're young and that sometimes parents, challenge your capabilities and so. What is your day like?
Well, that doesn't happen that much anymore. Right now, I could, because I wear a different hat, so like I have different types of days. But so like a day in therapy would basically look like I work with all groups. I work at I work part-time at Tots to Teens, so I will see kids there. I work independently, so I see adults, young adults there. And typically what I can speak about what's most rewarding and what's most difficult. I think for what's most rewarding for me is when clients get to that stage where they are excited about therapy and they start to see themselves changing, and then they start to do my job in the session. So like they basically start to answer their own questions, figure out their own problems, and I'm just there being a cheerleader. I think that's like my favorite part, because you see the transformation right in front of your eyes, and then they're so grateful for it, and they become champions of mental health. I have a client who, she was telling me how so let's just say I see her on Mondays, right? She was telling me that when she was at work on Monday, she was talking to one of her coworkers. She was telling them how, oh, it's therapy Monday, and she's so excited to go to therapy. And then the coworker look at her and like, you talk about therapy like it's a party you go into. And she was like, yeah, because I enjoy it as if I was at a party. And when she was telling me that story, it just made me feel so good, because I didn't even realize how much, she was enjoying the session. So that's definitely for me the most rewarding part of therapy. What can be very difficult about therapy is well, when I was, two things come to mind. One, when I was working at Tots Teens full time, and I was having a lot of clients, and I was seeing a lot of parents who would bring their children. I think now there's a kind of a change where the younger persons are very, 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 very open to therapy. So sometimes they will even come and say that they were the ones that asked their parents to bring them. What comes with that sometimes, though, is very, very, very hesitant parents, or sometimes very difficult parents who just think that all they need to do is pay for the sessions and carry them, and that all the work and everything should happen within the 1 hour, and they're supposed to be seeing changes immediately, and they're not supposed to. There's no work for them in the process at all. The child is just supposed to get better. That can be very difficult, because in explaining to them the processes of therapy, sometimes they don't really want to hear all of that. They just want to know, all right, so how many sessions are going to take? And I explain to them that I can't really give you a set figure.
Right.
But this is what I can explain to you what I may have planned and how I would like your involvement in it. And they'll be like, okay, so that's about 6-7 sessions, right? And so it just, sometimes it just doesn't translate to them. And that can be difficult. And then also you encounter difficult clients as well. So you will have clients who either don't want to be there, or they want to be there, but they don't think it's helpful, but they keep coming back, but they still don't think it's helpful. And you suggest referrals, and they say don't want to stay with you, but they still don't think it's helpful, and you kind of have to like ride the process and ride the storms with them. That can be challenging sometimes, but again, I find that it's more, for me, the journey is more rewarding than challenging. And what really helps for me though is being able to take care of myself in between, because if it's so easy to get caught up in therapy and clients and helping people, and you forget yourself. Well, one thing I'm definitely proud to say that I'm a champion of is taking care of myself. Like I'm not ashamed of being selfish when I need to be. And I'm also very grateful that I have a group of friends that have a similar mindset as I do. So we take self-care very seriously.
Right.
So that will involve meeting, planning trips together, planning little outings together, or just going over somebody's house and like liming. Those things really are what keeps me grounded and keep me going in the job.
Right. Thank you so much, Chad. Staying grounded and doing the self-care to avoid burnout and and all the other negative impacts from absorbing all of the challenges other persons have. Dr. Rose, I know you said you needed to go by 3.
Yes, I just got a message that it's 3:30, but still, I wouldn't mind being out before.
A little before
Yeah.
3:30. That's actually me too, because I have a meeting.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, someone asked, Ricardo asked if you transitioned into your master's right after undergrad, and or if you worked through a period, if you had a period of working before your master's. It didn't sound that way to me, but you can respond.
Yeah, I'll go really simple for me. I took a year off between my master's and my undergrad and my master's. So in the year off, I was working. I worked at National Youth Service and so some other little jobs. They weren't directly psychology related, but some of them I would have to use things that I learned in undergrad to kind of help me with the job. So I took 1 year off between the two because I was also trying to get into master's programs abroad. So I was doing GRE and whatever, all those other things, and that never worked out. So I took 1 year off.
Chad and Dr. Rose, one of the things that I keep hearing is volunteerism. And I realize that it is something that will open doors of opportunity, give you a new perspective. Sometimes you meet different people, and then sometimes you're able to recognize a path that you never considered before. It can set you up for that. Did you do anything like that, or you went straight to your master's, Dr. Rose?
No, so I was always volunteering from before I had finished undergrad. So I started working from 2005, which would have been the year before I graduated in 2006 with my undergrad, because of the hangout center with Girl Guides and so on, so much so that I had work experience to put on my CV at the time. I went straight to the master's immediately after undergrad, but then did not start the PhD until probably 8 or 9 years after, not because I didn't want to, but at one point I didn't want to, but I was determined. And remember, me and my intentions. I was determined that I was not going to pay for another degree. So I knew I had to get a scholarship. So I got through for universities in the States and in the United Kingdom, but then I could not afford their monies. Those strong pounds were very heavy. And I remember getting through for the University of Exeter in England, and I deferred because I was trying to get a scholarship. And then also having a distinction. I was like, yeah, man, oh gosh, no must can give me a scholarship. That wasn't working, okay? So I said, nobody owes you anything. You better go out there and keep working and keep working and keep working. So I applied. I couldn't defer anymore. And so they said, okay, you're going to have to reapply. So that's another year gone and another. So it wasn't straightforward for the last part. The last leg, there was nothing about the last leg that was straightforward. So don't mind what time you get to do your master's, because maybe by the time you finish do your master's, you go straight into a PhD program, and somebody else can go the straight route of undergrad, then master's, and then a whole gap before they get to do the PhD. And then I applied for UWI because I said I'm not coming back to UWI to do anything, and I got through. And I was like, dear God, could you please allow me to not be in this program? And then the horror stories were worse than the ones that I got for the master's. If you think the horror stories were, and I'm not gonna go through that. You're being recorded here. Okay, so anyway, but my first 2 degrees, I'll still say to people, listen, I got the best foundation, okay? Mm-hmm. It's just that the length of time on certain things, you know how that goes, right? So fast forward, I got through to UWI, and then it was Jamaica 50th, and I went down to grad school to drop off my things and I was like, Miss, I'm not sure I'm gonna come in because I tell you somebody determined I'm not pay for the next degree. I'm not doing it. And then when I see like I'm going to do it, and she said, right, girl, like you don't get a scholarship from me. I said, no, because I tried for Fulbright. In the interview, I could hear what everybody was ordering for lunch. Somebody do want baked chicken with curd gravy, and I remember that very distinctly because they were first of all, they asked me if I think athletes and humans are people. I want to answer that. All time I was there wondering, oh, may I answer that? Because I'm like, that is such a stupid question. And the point, they just assumed that I was going to make some big money, because back then we had a particular athlete who was showing that the mental part of trade thing, we're not going to call the person's name, was very critical. So they were just of the view that I was going to make some big money, and of course, we never get that scholarship. Okay, moving forward to dropping off the thing because I got through for you, and the lady told me, say, she said, they have the Petra Caribbean scholarship. You should apply for that, man. And it's Jamaica 58, and I said, all right. Remember, some in a program, not enough people. Anyway, apply. The people and called me, and I said, thank you, God. Then the coordinator said, are you sure you want to go? You don't want any overseas experience? And I said, Miss, it's an overseas experience I want, but I wasn't getting through. And the universe worked in miraculous ways. So I deferred. I withdrew from the program here because it was just about to start. Went back and I told the lady down grad school, thank her very much, because I get through. And then everywhere I go, I would see my face on TV because the people have to tell the world, so them to give me a scholarship. So I was one of Jamaica's 58 Petra Caribbean scholar. And then I said this, I told them that, I got through for Leicester in England. And so much so I became a Leicester fan. And it's not because them did win 1 year, but anyway. And after that, no, I ended up in a program, and I said they would fund the PhD. And so 8 years later, I was in a PhD program. And then 7 years later, I was finished. I did finish on the 6th year, but my supervisor never looked at my work until 1 year. And what if I excitement? There's always a story, but the point is just stick to the plan that you have for yourself. And what I mean by that is that plan must just be based in positivity and acknowledging that things don't work out sometimes, but that's okay, because the universe unfolds as it should. And while I was at school, I was still working. I was still learning about my craft. Life had happened. I got married, then divorced, and we still move on. So life happens to all of us, okay? And it's just how you take that lesson and how you move from there.
Okay.
Oh, and I have a book to give away. Yes, I have one of my books to give away. But that is up to Ms. Hazard based on how the question you want to ask for the giveaway. And then you have to come to the sports department for it. I'll autograph it and give it to you.
All right, great. Before I ask that question, Dr. Rose, someone wanted to know, how do you go about getting a mentor? That's Kristan is asking that question.
Okay, so I was in the mentorship program from You Mentorship. That's how I met my mentor, and I've been in that program as a mentor as well, and I met some clinical people, and I have to say clinical people like that, and they say they want to do what I do. I said, sure, come. Yes, see, if you come to work with me and you start ball about sun, it's a wrap, because you will have, the weather does not change, okay? Thankfully now COVID has had me out of the sun for the past 2 years, and it's proper sun too. So I've mentored persons. Some are, yeah man, the sun is real, and it's real, but so too is the cold. So you cannot want to work in sport and have issues with weather. It don't work like that, okay? And I could even tell you about natural disasters, because the pitch will be shaking, and that is a real earthquake while the game is going on. You understand? But these things happen and in different parts of the world. So I do mentorship. And I believe that mentorship is very important, because you don't know everything. And then when you do know, you need to teach, right? Right. They never end up in sport, but I'm still able to give them some advice that they can use, because psychology is psychology. I don't know why there's this great divide. I really don't know, because I have to sometimes, of course, refer people for clinical work if they need that. Mm-hmm. But we're still applying all of what we've learned, even in a clinical space. You understand? Mm-hmm. So it's just that my area is not just tied to this office. It's out in the sun, not in them nice clothes there, gear and sneakers. You can find me when they put me in gear. And then, we're girly, so we wear nails. That's not, so they can easily spot that I'm not an athlete. But the point is, the mentorship is important. And I have mentees that are now in PhD programs, because the things that I've learned, a way would have been made easier if somebody was there to chart that path for me in my particular field. So if you're interested in being a sports psychologist, I'm more than willing to work with you. My approach is very simple. I don't play, even though I work in a sport that's all about playing. I don't play. What do I mean by that? We don't make excuses, and I don't give you excuses. So that's how we achieve what we achieve. You know, that had to be a secret formula, right? So if you're interested and you're serious, like I had a mentee one time that was behaving like she busier than me. Sarah, you can be busier than me. I am the busiest person I know. So you cannot find time to do what you're assigned to do or what we have worked on. And
I think Dr. Rose is frozen, or is it?
Okay, so that's pretty much it.
I think her connection is a little unstable.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if it was mine, because I know my connection was giving a little challenge earlier.
I mean, I guess I can give a
Because my phone keeps doing stuff. Yeah, I hear now.
I hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, hearing you now as well. All right. So I really appreciate that. Chad, you were gonna say something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say too. Just unofficially too, I think you can get mentors just by reaching out to maybe lecturers or persons in the profession that you already know and have some relationship with. I've had a student done that for me. Like I tutored for some years, but I only lectured for like a year, and for various reasons. But one of the students who I lectured had just emailed me and told me about what her goals are, but she's also not so sure of how to accomplish them. And she liked me as a lecturer, so she would like me to, mentor her if possible. And so mentorship can look at many different things. It can just really be just you being there for them, asking them, answering their questions and guiding them, but also usually what helps too is that as a mentor, we would give you things based on what either is in line with you or things that we may need help with, like research, or so it can vary with the person you approach. But I think that starting with lecturers or people that professionals in the community, just by sending them an email and asking them if they're open to being mentors, or if they aren't, if they know other persons that they may be able to contact.
Thanks. So I want to ask a question. I mean, there are so many things that Dr. Rose mentioned. I'm not even sure which of them to ask for that great book. That's the book that you have written, Dr. Rose? One of your books?
Yes, I've co-authored. So this is a book that I've co-authored with Carol Beckford. This is the first book of its kind called Caribbean Sport Marketing and Psychology. It's ABC, so like it's really easy to read, but it can be used as a reference point based on the given area of specialization. So it's marketing and psychology. Okay, all right. I think I want to ask, because I think there are so many nuggets that both you and Chad shared. You spoke about the volunteerism, you spoke about the focus. But that cannot be a question that you're going to ask, because everybody would get that once. No, man, I'm not going to ask that. What I want to ask them is, you have mentioned a phrase time and time again about the journey. And I want the first person who can mention that phrase to me, just as how you said it. Different things will come and so on. What is that phrase that Dr. Rose keeps talking about? That is like a synopsis of everything that she has said. That sounds vague, Dr. Rose? No, man, that can work. That can work. Okay, trusting the process is one.
Somebody got it.
Okay.
So somebody said trusting the process. I repeated that so many times.
Yes.
Trusting the process and going with the flow, yes.
Sishana, trust the process and go with the flow. Oh,
okay,
Lord.
all right, thank you. I guess those are the qualitative researchers here. I wasn't aware that I was saying that so many times. So who is the winner of this book?
Shoshana was the first person who mentioned trusting the process. Okay,
so if you are on campus any day, Shoshana, I am over by across from the Mona Visitors Lodge, where Office of Student Services and Development is, around you take the back step. So you come in at Gibraltar Way, and that's where my office is.
All right, so that's Shoshana. That's such an unusual name, Shoshana K. Kelly. So Javari, you can just make a note of that.
Yes, please. Make
a note of that. Dr. Rose. And forward to Dr.
Right.
Rose. I really appreciate you coming. The takeaway for me is being adaptable to the situation. You may not be able to recognize it, but once you trust the process and go with the flow, then you'll be able to adapt to the new situations that present themselves to make the most of the opportunities that present. I'm hearing volunteering coming from both of you. I'm also hearing not being afraid to take on a challenge. I mean, Chad mentioned that after undergrad, he found himself in Belize. And you know, and I'm saying it's a new way of doing things. It's unfamiliar to you, but you're still willing to step out. So I think stepping out is one of those things that resonated with me in your discussion. Stepping out, seeing the opportunity, not sure how it's going to work out, but you step out anyways and you grasp hold of it. Another thing that you both mentioned was networking. Networking. So it's not just when you need the thing that you step out to see who you can get it from, but just generally acknowledging people, honoring the people who pass through your life, you know, because you never know, you know, like you never knew that you would be in New Zealand with responsibilities and needing someone to guide you and connecting you. So it's not just about the schoolwork. The schoolwork is important, but it's not just about the books. It's about acknowledging that you need the help and seeking out the help and not being afraid of the answers that you will get. So I really thank you. I don't know if there are any other questions from the club.
Has to be one quick one though.
Yes, one quick question. Any questions, anybody? While we're waiting on that question, I'll just say that this whole matter of volunteering and trying to help others can really unlock doors, because I recently completed my undergrad in psychology and I wanted to do applied psychology because I was just afraid of all of those stories about clinical psychology. And I was just thinking, you know, Chad, I was saying, after, you know, I did abnormal psychology and you watch a couple of videos with people eating liver and all of those things, I was totally traumatized. You know, I was saying, no, this is too weird for me. But, you know, just from helping somebody to figure out what they were doing, I discovered forensic psychology. And it's new and it's refreshing, but it is so exciting. And you know what I discovered? I discovered that I'm exactly in the same place that I was trying to run from. I'm exactly in the abnormal, right in the middle of abnormal psychology with this whole forensic thing. So guys, sometimes it may not be obvious at first what it is that you're supposed to do, but if you practice volunteering, if you practice making yourself available to help others along their way, you'll find sometimes that it opens your own door. So with that, I didn't see any questions. So with that, I want to really thank Chad Lambert again and Dr. Olivia Rose for spending the time with us this afternoon as we explore the different aspects of psychology and what we can do with our psychology degree. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Javario, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Aldis. Right, guys, so that was very informative, I might add, like extremely informative and very truthful. I love the honesty. So thank you guys for coming out. And we'll definitely see you next week again, same time. But with that being, and thank you also, Aldis, for taking the
You're
time out
welcome.
to moderate
Anytime,
this session for us.
anytime.
Right. All right. So with that being said, guys, see you next week and do take